Define style. Why do some people and even countries have it and others not? Perhaps it's to do with having a strong ideological vision, one that's about stripping things back to their essence. Or is it really just about sticking to your guns, whether that's minimal or maximalist? Either route is rooted in honesty, and maybe that's the best style of all. This is Monocle on Design.
And we love this celebration of uniqueness, but it's all unified with a Brazilian identity.
But you really have to work hard to live here. You have to think about what you need, how you want to live. You have to redesign the space every day.
This is Monocle on Design, a show where we discuss everything from architecture and craft to furniture and graphic design. I'm Nick Manise. On today's program, we explore Brazilian furniture at Jig in London's Soho. We'll take a tour of the Rietveld Schröder House in the Netherlands, plus some of the best things to look forward to at Salone del Mobile. All that coming up on Monocle on Design. Grace Charlton, Monocle's Associate Editor of Design and Fashion, leaning back into design this week. It's production week for the Salone del Mobile newspaper.
I know. Are you excited?
I'm really excited because obviously I think there's probably about 50 or 60 stories in it. So it's kind of a great way to get a little preview of what's coming and what things might look like, what we should go and see. I mean, you've built the list of about 50 events to go to. Are there any that have jumped out at you?
I really entered the void putting together this little directory. In terms of what I'm excited about, just reading about them from press releases, there's Radice and Galotti, which is an Italian brand, known for glass works. And they're doing a group show with all these different female designers, and it's like an exploration of glass. I've always been really drawn to glass as a material, so I'm excited for that one.
Is that going to be your side hustle or your next live glass blowing? Or are we going to go for carpentry?
My medium might be glass blowing. I think I would be really good at it.
What is actually pulling you towards Radice and Galotti?
I just think it's fun to have a group showcase of all these different perspectives, but they have one unifying medium. Another thing I'm excited about is that Demna, this is more of a fashion one, sorry, forgive me.
I'm looking at your lineup here. You're excited about all the fashion brands. We've got Demna, Jill Sander, Miu Miu Lit Club. Tell us about Demna first and why you like these.
Demna is a bit of a controversial figure of the fashion industry. He's currently the creative director of Gucci. I wasn't sure if Gucci was going to do anything this year, but they've announced that they will put on an exhibition. And I just don't know how Demna is going to fit into the Milan Design Week calendar. I'm intrigued to see what he does. And then Jill Sander, which is one of my favourite brands of all time, Simone Bellotti, another recently appointed creative director, is creating a library. And it's 60 different books chosen by 60 different creatives that people can come and explore and peruse, but they have to wear white gloves first.
Is this so that... no, I'm here for this. I think anytime people are touching any sort of literature in public, they should have to wear gloves. You know, that feeling of the safety card in the back of an airline seat, that kind of grimy kind of feeling. That's what my fear.
I think it's good for your immune system to come into contact.
But if we're looking at all these, with the public, if we're looking at all these books over the course of the week, I think I like the white gloves.
If you could pick a book for the Jill Sander library, a late entry, book number 61, chosen by Nick Manise, which one are you choosing?
I would go for Christopher Alexander's Pattern Language, which is, when I was working as a designer, it was my Bible. The whole idea is that you can break the design of the world down into a series of patterns, starting with literally the country scale, working all the way down to the table, the cutlery that we're holding. This fascinating approach to design where all these different things are kind of linked and looped in together. And I just think it's a wonderful way to kind of deconstruct the world, and less a guidebook, but a source of inspiration to get you thinking about particular design problems to solve. That's what I'd add. I'm a huge fan of it. How many suitcases have you got? What's your movie?
One suitcase. You
but
don't
not
need
carry
more.
on?
Even if I'm going, even if I'm on a 6-month trip, it's one suitcase.
Yeah, me too. And then 4 different carry-on bags.
No, wrong. One carry-on bag, one suitcase. That's it. No, because I want to be able to, this is something my mother taught me, which is you should always be able to carry your own bags. You can't rely on any man. I just think it's important to be able to carry your own boat and, stay agile on the move. It stresses me out on behalf of other people when I see 3 big wheelie suitcases being dragged by one person at Heathrow Airport at 5 a.m. No.
I want to move. I'm pushing everyone's bags.
How many bags are you packing?
It'll be all carry-on, so it'll be my usual setup of 4.
Why? Why don't you just check stuff in?
Because ITA Airlines lost my bag last time we were coming back from Milan. And I only checked it in because you were checking a bag. And I was like, well, I may as well do it as well. But I digress. It's why we're flying BA to Salone del Mobile this year. Have you seen any Brazilian design coverage heading into Salone?
I have, actually. There's a Jorge Zalzupen exhibition called Warsaw, Sao Paulo, Milan that is going to be taking place at the Torre Velasca, and it honours the life and work of the Brazilian modernist. It looks amazing, and it's actually a really good segue into the first topic of conversation on this show today.
Brazilian design.
Yeah.
We're going to head to Soho's Lexington Street in London, where Jig, a Brazilian furniture gallery, has just opened. It's co-founded by architect Richard Penman and the Brazilian-born design strategist Grace Nemeth. The space features a rotating group of Brazilian designers showing their work.
Monocle Radio's senior correspondent and my favourite colleague, Fernando Augusto Pacheco, who is Brazilian, he lives in Soho. He paid a visit to meet Richard and Grace, who we're going to hear from now.
I always had an interest in designing furniture, whether if it was in a retail setting or in a domestic setting. But there's one thing designing and getting it fabricated. It's another thing seeing somebody else's work and being inspired to want to translate that to a new marketplace. I'd never really worked in this field before, but was always interested in art and artistry. And the coupling of Grace and our vision for Jig Studio meant that we were able to bring forth these amazing artists into Soho, into our studio. So it's a genesis, really, of my career, being able to work on a global scale. And as Grace said, from Soho, which is such a remarkable incubator for many different artists, whether if it's fashion, retail, food, bars, nightlife, you name it. It's got that pulse that really sets the space alight.
Grace, I want to ask you a question, because when we met at Collect Art Fair, we're talking about how Brazilian design is perceived. And I feel that in the UK, people, they appreciate it, but I think it's something that still a lot of people need to know still. You know, I think there's still a space of discovery for many people. How do you see that, especially in the UK?
Yeah. I think one of the things that we realize when we have conversations with different journalists, architects, interior designers, collectors, we do notice that there is an appreciation, but it's still, as you said, a lack of understanding in terms of the roots and this kind of extraordinary melting pot that we are in terms of being creative and bringing different techniques as well because of this global background that we have. So I think when you look to the modernist or the classic designers, I think there is some names and some people that are known already. But when it comes to different materials or avant-garde and contemporary designers, we don't have the same kind of spotlight. So I think what we're trying to do is to bring that to a different kind of understanding, and we are trying to achieve that through either the talks or the exchanges that we are doing. But I think what we really want to express is a different sort of understanding and a different sort of perception of what Brazil can stand for, and we are not behind of any other type of cultural traditional designers that we would say in comparison, for example, with Italians or Scandinavians, would they have a much more different perspective in the European scene. So that's what we are trying to achieve.
You know, we all love Niemeyer, of course, you know, but Brazil is not only that as well. So I think it's very cool, you know, looking around. There's the difference, the different techniques as well. I don't think there's just one type of style, right? So tell us about the curation of the space. How do you guys decide which artists will you feature in terms of diversity of materials? And so tell us a bit more.
It's interesting, the diversity aspect, because that's very key, that each artist has their own diversity by the nature of Brazil being very multicultural, very multinational. And that's reflected through the work, and that's very much the DNA of the studio, is to interweave each story, and that also informs the curation. So it started with Gustavo and his work. We loved his work on many parts, notwithstanding the fact that it's designed to almost move. It invites the person, whoever's enjoying a piece of furniture, to move in the way in which it's designed for. And also the incredible craftsmanship and pairing of materials that I'm interested in from conservation architecture is how you have something contemporary against something that's perhaps of a heritage nature. And so this heritage is also that bond, as Grace mentioned earlier. The modernist movement is obviously a very important part of Brazilian design and DNA, but it's now a separation. And so the contemporary part now sits alongside that. And that's shared again with, for example, Alex Hocker's work, whom uses found materials as well as donated materials to resonate with his own heritage. So his African roots are coming out in his pieces, and we love to celebrate that. And we love this celebration of uniqueness. But it's all unified with a Brazilian identity.
Grace, I wonder if you can mention some of the names here. And I have to say, I'm sitting in a beautiful chair, very unique, especially the back of the chair. It's not even, but it's just very beautiful as well. I have to mention that.
So, as Richard mentioned, we represent 7 artists. So I'm going to start with the first one, which is Gustavo Bittencourt, which Richard was just mentioning about his intention of creating this intersection between the experience of the person within piece. So they move, that's the intent, they're not steady. So it's quite surprising. And then when we come to, for example, Humberto da Mata, he's a guy who has a very interesting approach, which is very organic in his types of manifesting his art. So he works with papier-mâché. As you feel his pieces, they have a very organic shape. And when we go, for example, to Alex Hocker, which is this artist who has an intrinsic relationship with Brazilian and African design, he tries to express his art through textiles and threads, and sometimes he brings other materials, but it's the colorful and vibrancy of the bond of Brazil and Africa in his pieces, which is amazing. And then when we go to Ronald Sassoon, which is a very, I think, architectural kind of work, very precise, straight lines, but an extraordinary delivery in terms of joints and lines. When we're talking about this chair that you're sitting on, which is Ovo, Virgula Ovo, which is the name of the studio, which Luciana and Gerson are the founders. They have a very experienced studio, and they try to work as well a lot of the sophistication of materials. And for example, this chair, the proposition is to play with something that is very traditional, which is the woven in a different sort of layout, which is incredible. So they use something that is very traditional, that was brought from Europe to Brazil. They reinterpret that, and then they deliver something else, which is amazing. And then lastly, I would mention as well, no, actually we have 2 more. We have Boni, which is this incredible designer as well, who is very into curves. So his work is very into trying to challenge design based on curves, and the feminine, which has a strong influence in his upbringing. And then lastly, we have the Origin, which is a brand who partners with very interesting designers to deliver very unique works. So, for example, this table that we are using to make our talk is done by Plataforma 4, which is one of the brands that partner with Origin, which is the manufacturer brand. And they have a very interesting way of producing, very sustainable. They have strong sustainable footprints in terms of the manufacturing process, and that's why they use this capability with the minds of interesting designers to produce unique pieces as well.
Finally, Richard, I just want to ask you, are you excited for Jig Studio in 2026? You guys were, correct me from the first Brazilian gallery at Collect as well, which was super incredible. But how are you looking ahead for the year?
Yes, this year represents more stability in terms of where we're focusing our attention. We only started in October of last year, and we've already been shown at Collect. So our future looks like a new artist joining us, which will be unveiled due course. But that will coincide with our 1-year anniversary in October. So we're looking to renovate the whole of the space and have a dedicated solo exhibition of this new artist, which we're very excited for. And to continue the work in informing London of what Brazil stands for.
Thanks to Richard and Grace there of Jig in London. Go and visit them at 25 Lexington Street in Soho. I feel like Brazilian design is always having a moment, but it seems like it's more of a thing now. I'm seeing it everywhere.
I agree. I feel like we've seen it at a few collectible design fairs, including Design Miami. Obviously, there's a big sort of Latin American connection in Miami, but I have a feeling, or a suspicion, if you will, that the sort of seductive style of Brazilian modernism, which is lots of like dark woods, sinuous lines, it's really resonating with the current design zeitgeist that I've seen. And it goes really well with like brushed aluminium as well.
100%. I think also what's fascinating, I was kind of going through Mercado Modern, who amazing gallery. We saw them at Design Miami in Miami, and I was looking at their lineup of designers, and it's contemporary and kind of the mid-century kind of classics. If you put a piece by the likes of Zanin Caldas alongside, who's an amazing mid-century designer, inspired by the likes of Oscar Niemeyer and Lucio Costa, so that kind of world of industry meets handicrafts, beautiful timber, gentle curves, all this sort of thing. If you put that alongside the work of someone like Rodrigo Simão, has been practicing since 2000, 2001, you kind of maybe wouldn't be able to tell which was the old piece and which was the new piece. And I think that's what's also so fascinating about it. It's like this kind of continuous visual language that has just kind of stayed true to, its historic roots.
I also think it's quite warm often, like furniture design from Brazil, but then the architecture itself is like quite cold. I'm thinking lots of big concrete structures by Lino Bobardi or Oscar Niemeyer, who you mentioned. So again, I think it's just really the current taste. There's an appetite for it. So it's nice to see, design galleries like Jig in London popping up and all, Bossa or Mercado Modern in Miami.
That's also quite fascinating in terms of when you think about their architecture, it's often is quite concrete, quite heavy. Maybe it's also speaking to that rapid nation building in the 20th century. But you contrast that, again, with the furniture, which is warm and inviting. And even the landscapes, Roberto Burle Marx, amazing landscape architect, it's very happy, it's curvy, it's lush, it's verdant. So you have this amazing kind of contrast between the two, which I think is so, so beautiful and why it works. Let's jump from one country that was sort of booming in the 20th century to another. We're going to head to the Netherlands now. You're our artist in residence on this show.
Art historian.
Art historian in residence, that's what we're looking for.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about De Stijl and this movement that took place or was kind of boomed in the Netherlands in the 20th century.
Piet Mondrian was a painter and sort of an ideological leader of this movement, but it sort of went beyond art and into design, specifically with the work of Gerrit Rietveld, who made that really famous zigzag chair.
I wrote this in the script because I have it in my house. I'm obsessed with it.
You've got a dupe of it.
Not a dupe. A man made an interpretation of the original piece in his workshop, in his home workshop, and I just happened to purchase them. So it's not a copy, it's inspired by, but it's exactly the same.
Sounds illegal.
It's not illegal because he wasn't making them at scale, but I digress. It's one of my favourite pieces of furniture. I just like the fact that it's kind of like this single line that is a zigzag
It's like super energetic. It reminds me of a lightning bolt or something. I feel like De Stijl is very your vibe.
I sit and I just look at the chair. I very rarely sit in the chair. The chair is actually great to sit in.
Because it's badly made.
No, because it's made in a workshop somewhere in South London by a Dutch guy, so I think it's all legit. But it's just a beautiful thing to look at. You're right, it's uplifting, it's super energetic. And I think that also translates to a lot of his work, which Monocle's contributing editor, Sheena Rossiter, went and visited his own house, the Rietveld Schröder House, which has been described as a three-dimensional manifesto of the De Stijl movement. Let's hear Sheena's report now.
It's a quiet Saturday morning on an overcast winter's day in Utrecht, the Netherlands' fourth largest city that's about 30 minutes by train southeast of Amsterdam. The city is moving at a slow weekend pace. Locals are out for a stroll and to grab their morning coffee and pastry. As I make my way down the street on the east side of the city, all the homes I pass by are built with red brick that give a nod to the Romanesque and Dutch Baroque architecture, which is commonly seen throughout the country. But at the end of the block, a dash of modernism is infused into the landscape with a uniquely designed house.
Hi Sheena, please come in. The Rietveld Schröder House in Utrecht.
The hinges on the over 100-year-old home creak as they open, and I'm greeted by Nathalie Dubois.
I'm the curator of the Centraal Museum of the Applied Arts and Design section. And one of our biggest collection piece actually is a house, this house where we are now. The Rietveld Schröder House.
Nathalie has been working at the Centraal Museum for over 25 years, and she knows the home inside and out. Nathalie even co-authored a book about the history of the home. She shows me around.
Well, we can just make a small tour at the ground floor, so we can start in the kitchen.
Nathalie goes into details about how the home came together.
So this is where we show the public the commissioner of the house, Mrs. Truus Schröder. She designed it together with Gerrit Rietveld. They both had the guts to do it. She had the money. Without any other example, they built this really out of nothing.
Apparently, Schröder and Rietveld actually met before, when Truus Schröder's husband was still alive. Rietveld designed a room in her old house that she shared with her husband. It was a space that she could call her own. The house she used to live in with her late husband was opulent and maximalist.
This 19th century house where they lived, which was really, really almost over-decorated. Heavy furniture, a lot of carpets, heavy curtains, a lot of stuff.
Miss Schröder always desired to get more educated and live more simply. After her husband died in 1923, she commissioned Rietveld to design a new minimalist home where she could live with her 3 children.
And then within a year, she moved out there with her 3 kids here without any stuff. So she sold everything.
She wanted a simple space that didn't constrain her, walls that could slide in and out, and windows that could open outwards to create more space with nature. The house is largely based on the Stijl aesthetic, which is Dutch for the style. What started as a magazine and founded by Theo van Doesburg and Piet Mondriaan, it was an early 20th century Dutch art movement founded in 1917 that sought universal harmony through radical, non-representational aesthetics. The style is defined by its strict use of horizontal and vertical lines and primary colors.
But you really have to work hard to live here. You have to think about what you need, how you want to live. You have to redesign the space every day. So you really have to think about how you use space.
Near the end of her life, Miss Schröder said that she was likely the only person who could still live in the house. She lived in the house for over 60 years until she died in 1985, and after her death, she left it to the management of the Rietveld Schröder House Foundation and to the Centraal Museum. And since the year 2000, the house has been classified as a UNESCO heritage site.
The Rietveld Schröder House. You may find it difficult to imagine, but this house was designed almost a century ago, in 1920.
Visitors to the house hold their mobile phones close to their ears as they listen to the audio guide, which unveils the history and facts of each room in the selected language of their choice. The house is just full of little gems, maximalizing the minimalist spaces with multiple functions. Aside from being true to the Stijl modernist style, all spaces and objects seemingly were meant to double in function. The daughters' beds double as sofas, another bedroom doubled as a study. The house's curator, Nathalie Dubois, takes me to the window to show me yet another functionality of the space.
Under the windowsill, there's this planche, and you can fold it. And there are some devices underneath from wood. And you have a desk. And then there are 2 variations. This is the desk for writing, but you can also make it a desk in a 45-degree angle for reading. And then they just slide this bench from over there here, and the 3 kids could study here.
So how does the functionality of this minimalist home really work in practice in terms of transforming the spaces? Let's take a listen to our tour guide, Charlie Harshaman, who's about to demonstrate how the upstairs floor is transformed from nighttime to daytime living.
So what we see now is actually the setup for nighttime. So we are standing in the living room, and around us we see the several bedrooms. And during the day they would have a big open space, and they remove the sliding walls to be able to create the space. So I'm going to show you how to prepare the house for daytime.
We all shuffle around to make way for Charlie as she starts to make adjustments. She's dressed all in black and wearing white gloves to ensure nothing gets damaged. She flips down a few sliding locks that are holding movable modular walls in place, and then slides them out of the way, transforming what was just 3 rooms into one large open space on the top floor of the house.
First part, and then we can also open up the area around the staircase.
Charlie then unlocks and folds up the 4 light window panes that wrap around and enclose the top of the staircase. She folds the movable window panes up and moves them out of the way, opening up the space even more to what would appear to be a modern, open and spacious living room like we would experience today.
And the finishing touch.
We all laugh as she moves down a small black piece of wood on the staircase railing.
And the house is ready for daytime.
The house has been painstakingly restored over the years. Visitors to the house are required to wear booties over their shoes. Stijl and its history is what attracts some 12,000 visitors to make their way through this home every year, including Renato Keizer, who came here today from Belgium.
I also know a bit about the Stijl because it's more than architecture alone. So when I saw this house, and I thought, I really want to see it.
This house was built over 101 years ago. Are you surprised at how modern this house looks?
Yes, absolutely, and how essential. And also, well, it's my first time being in Utrecht, but we walked to the house through Utrecht, and this is nothing like the other houses in Utrecht. They all seem like a bit similar and a bit older and a bit in a classical style. If I didn't know the style, I would, let's say, probably like the 60s or so. And then the first time people are like, oh, it's different, it's strange. And now it's celebrated. So it should be like a motivation to do your own thing.
For Monocle in Utrecht, I'm Sheena Rossiter.
That was Monocle's contributing editor, Sheena Rossiter, reporting from Utrecht there. And that's all for today's show.
For more design stories, pick up a copy of Monocle magazine. Today's episode was produced and edited by Hassan Anderson, Elliot Greenfield and Christy O'Grady. I'm Nick Manise.
I'm Grace Charlton. Thanks for listening.